Hello everybody, welcome to our channel. In today's video, we are going to do a comparison between Gemini and ChatGPT. We are going to ask them a few questions and then see which one of these two is actually better. Let's start off with question number 1. Which programming language is best for making games? We're going to go ahead and hit enter on both of these and see what they come up with. So ChatGPT first says, C# is the best programming language for making games due to the availability of game development frameworks such as Unity and Godot, which have a lot of resources and tutorials available in C#. It also mentions that C# is a high-level language, which means it's easier to learn than lower-level languages like C or C++. However, it acknowledges that C# may not be the most performant language for game development, and that's why some AAA games are developed in C++. For those looking for maximum performance, it recommends considering C++, but acknowledges that it has a steeper learning curve. Now, let's look at what Gemini has to say about this. So it looks like Gemini gave us an answer that was a bit too short. So I'm going to go ahead and press retry here and see what happens. Alright, so it looks like Gemini just completely changed its entire answer. So it initially said C#, but now it's saying C. I'm going to go ahead and hit retry one more time and see if we can get a different answer out of this. Alright, so once again it's saying C#. At least it's consistent now, but I don't think either of these answers were really good. I mean, ChatGPT at least gave us a couple different options and explained why it chose the first one. But I got to say, neither of these are particularly helpful because when you're making games, performance is actually pretty important, and neither of these answers really took that into consideration. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one a tie and move on to the next question. All right, the next question I'm going to ask them is, how hard would it be to learn your programming language? Here we go. Let's see what they come up with. So ChatGPT first says that learning Python is relatively easy compared to other programming languages because it has a clear and readable syntax that is closer to natural language. It also mentions that Python has a large and active community of learners and professionals, which means there's plenty of resources and support available for those learning the language. It also acknowledges that the ease of learning Python doesn't necessarily translate to job opportunities and that knowing the language alone isn't enough to become a developer. You still need to practice and build projects to develop your skills. Let's see what Gemini has to say about this. All right, so it looks like Gemini has given us a similar answer to ChatGPT. It's saying that Python is relatively easy to learn compared to other programming languages because of its clear and readable syntax. It also mentions that Python is a versatile language that can be used for various applications, such as web development, data science, and automation, which gives learners flexibility to explore different areas of programming. Like ChatGPT, it also acknowledges that knowing Python alone doesn't guarantee success, and that you still need to practice and build projects. I'm going to have to give this one to ChatGPT, though, because it gave us a little bit more information about how to get a job after learning Python, whereas Gemini did not really elaborate on anything. All right, the next question I'm going to ask them is, can you explain quantum computing to me? This should be a really interesting question to see how they answer because I'm not really sure how difficult it is to understand quantum computing. Let's find out. All right. So, ChatGPT first defines quantum computing and explains how it works by harnessing the principles of quantum mechanics, such as superposition and entanglement. It then goes on to explain how quantum computers use qubits to perform calculations and how they differ from classical bits. It also talks about some of the challenges of building and using quantum computers and gives examples of problems that quantum computers can solve faster than classical computers. It ends by saying that quantum computing is a rapidly developing field with potential applications in medicine, materials science, and cryptography. Now let's see what Gemini has to say about this. Okay, so it looks like Gemini has decided to define quantum computing in just a few sentences. It also mentions that quantum computers use qubits which can be in multiple states at once, and that they can perform calculations much faster than traditional computers. However, it doesn't go into as much detail as ChatGPT did. It doesn't talk about things like superposition and entanglement, and it doesn't give any examples of problems that quantum computers can solve faster than classical computers. I'm definitely going to have to give this one to ChatGPT. Like, the answer that Gemini gave us was fine, but it just wasn't as detailed as the one that ChatGPT gave us. All right, so the next question I'm going to ask them is, how do you prevent cross-site scripting attacks? This is a pretty common question that I think a lot of developers have, so let's see what they say. Okay, so ChatGPT first defines what a cross-site scripting attack is, and then goes on to describe 3 ways to prevent them. The first way is to use a web application firewall, which filters out malicious scripts from incoming web traffic. The second way is to sanitize user input, which means removing or escaping any special characters that could be used to run malicious scripts. And the third way is to implement the content security policy, which allows you to control where the browser can load resources from. It ends by mentioning that no single security measure is foolproof, and that it's important to stay up to date on the latest security practices. All right, now let's see what Gemini has to say about this. Okay, so Gemini's answer is a bit confusing. It seems like it might be trying to say that you should use a web application firewall, sanitize user input, and use the content security policy, but it's not really worded very well. To be fair, preventing cross-site scripting attacks is pretty complicated, and I'm not really sure if any other answer would have been better, but I think ChatGPT's answer was definitely more clear. So, I'm gonna go ahead and give this one to ChatGPT. All right, so the next question I'm gonna ask them is, will AI take over the world? This is another pretty common question, and since they've already given us some pretty good answers so far, I'm hoping that they can give us a really good answer to this. Let's see what they say. ChatGPT first acknowledges that the fear of AI taking over the world is a common theme in science fiction, but argues that it's not realistic based on current technology. It explains that while AI can perform certain tasks better than humans, it still relies on humans to program it and provide the data it needs to function. It also mentions that there are ethical and legal considerations regarding the development and use of AI, and that these should be taken into account as AI continues to develop. Finally, it encourages readers to engage in thoughtful discussions about the future of AI and to stay informed about developments in the field. Now let's see what Gemini has to say about this. All right, so Gemini says that AI will not take over the world anytime soon. It says that AI is just a tool that can help humans do their jobs more efficiently, and that it's not capable of independent thought or action. It also says that humans have the ability to control and regulate AI to ensure that it remains safe and beneficial for society. Overall, Gemini seems pretty confident that AI is not a threat to humanity and that it can continue to develop without fear of a dystopian future. I'm going to have to give this one to ChatGPT, though. While both answers were fine, I think ChatGPT gave a better answer. It acknowledged that people's fears about AI taking over the world are valid, whereas Gemini kind of just jumped straight into saying that it won't happen. I think ChatGPT's answer was a little bit more well thought out. All right, so it looks like we have reached the end of our questions. So Gemini vs. ChatGPT, who will win? Well, ChatGPT won 4 out of the 5 questions. So I'd say that ChatGPT is the winner here. I think it gave more thorough and well-thought-out answers to our questions, but that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Which one of these do you think is better? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.